right now. Okay, so welcome to another monthly mastermind. This one is all about how to sell your training or your consultancy services to corporates, to businesses, B2B, to institutions, and help more people at a more corporate level, which usually means, and I don't mean to be as crass and frank, but more money. So I would just like to share with you that there already is a kind of pre-recorded version of today's training inside your Academy dashboard. I'm just going to share the screen and just, I'm on the wrong page here, and show you that just inside your dashboard, there is a course on your dashboard right now called How to Get Corporate Clients and to Buy Your Courses and Training. There's a couple of templates and documents that I will be showing you today that are already loaded inside there for you. So just so you know, that's where to go and grab the downloads that I'm going to be showing you today, because I'm going to be giving you my copy, editable copy of one of my B2B proposal templates that has scored me more than 7 figures in the past. So I'm going to be giving you that as a benefit of being a member on this call today. And I also will be giving you a budget sheet to kind of work out what you should be charging for your courses. Of course, we're going to be covering how to work out what to be charging your corporates today as well. So we're going to be covering how is it different in delivering to corporates and selling to corporates and B2B compared to doing the B2C, the public market. How do you actually reach out to these people, find them, get in contact with them in the first place? And how do you actually, craft together something that makes you look professional and will enable you to have a shot at actually getting these clients in the first place? Because frankly, as soon as you do get these clients, it can be a very long-winded, slow, drawn-out process to actually get a contract in the first place. But once you are onboarded, it's likely that that contract, that partnership, that agreement will actually last for quite a long time. The reason being is because these larger organizations do have such mundane, slow, cumbersome systems for setting up suppliers, making you an approved provider on their system, having to fill out all of their insurance forms and things like that. Is that actually it's so hard for them to find and onboard new people that if you do a good job in your first time and they like your delivery, they like your style, they get good feedback, they're going to just keep you on for as long as possible, because it saves them having to go out and do the whole tender and procurement process all over again. So when I go to just pre-phrase this with, it's a lot slower when you're working in this space compared to B2C. B2C world, business to public, going out there to the public world is fast. You pop out some content, you do a little bit of marketing, boom, people jump onto a sales page, they chuck in their credit card details, and they're a customer within seconds without you doing very much work at all. Right, she says. We all know there's a bit more behind it than that, but just in terms of context. With the B2B space, there is a much slower process that must be followed, and it can feel infuriating. It can feel like you're not getting anywhere, but trust me, it is. I want to give you a pre-frame today of kind of what that looks like so you're prepared as you move into this process. So I'm going to jump on, share some slides with you and take you through this process of how it basically works. Now, who am I to be qualified enough to be teaching you this? Before I was Sarah Coordinate Online, I was the CEO of a training company, an international training organization. It's been running for 15 years. By the way, it still very much is. It still exists. It still operates. And this was where my business actually began. I started with all of my contracts and all of the training work that I used to do, delivering personal and professional development training to government, to local councils, and to large organizations. I then took on a large number of training staff, and they were physically delivering training that I had written to corporate clients and my government clients across actually different countries. So I started my business in the UK with my university lecturer actually being my first ever trainer, who I took on board and employed to deliver some local government contracts. I then expanded out into Europe and was delivering training to the Maltese National Bank, the Bank of Valletta, and then won some European contracts delivering leadership training to heads of councils across the municipalities in Spain, in Malta, and across the UK. I then won a number of big chain training, delivering leadership training to 5-star hotel chains, basically the Hiltons, across a number of different countries. That then moved into Australia, where I very quickly developed a large number of contracts doing workforce development contracts, consulting, training development, and training delivery to most of the larger scale oil and gas mining management companies across Australia. So I've also been the executive director and head of campus of a university where I held the purse strings. I was the most senior leader on a university campus, and I was the one that made the decisions over what kind of external trainers and consultants we engage to come and deliver university staff. So with all of that experience combined, I am coming to you from this as somebody who has actually worked in this space, delivering to these kinds of clients for 15 years, but also from a person who is at an executive level as a training manager and a head of a university, and hired and engaged people like you to come and work for an organization as an external consultant or trainer. And I hope that from my own success in both of those spaces today, you're going to be armed by the end of this presentation with knowing how the process works, a couple of tools that I'm obviously going to let you download and take away, and some strategies to actually start going out there after this presentation and beginning this process, finding out who those people are you need to talk to and beginning those sales conversations. So if you're all still excited and still here, let's get cracking. What is it that you can actually sell? Now, I've mentioned two words here: trainer, other word might be facilitator, and consultant. These are kind of the two most common names that you may have for yourself when you move into the B2B and corporate space. Obviously very different to B2C. We kind of more throw around the word coach, but in the B2B space, you're going to be calling yourself a trainer, facilitator, or a consultant, all right, depending on what it is that you're going out and providing content on. And there are a number of different ways that you can kind of package up what it is that you're selling. Now, one is that you can sell, for instance, online courses as they are. But let's say you've created an online course, you can basically create a version of that online course to sell to employees, and you can go out and just sell that online course on its own. Another thing you might do is you may go to a corporate client or a business and say, I would like to offer your employees my online course and ongoing coaching from me. So you can have a kind of blended approach. It may be that some of that is delivered face-to-face, where you physically turn up to their workplace and deliver a presentation or a workshop in person, yet fly out or travel out to their location, and the rest is delivered remotely. That's also a blended learning approach. You can get really creative about how you can combine your online self-study content or online but live by doing group calls or one-on-one calls, or combining a bit of face-to-face training delivery with some of your online content and online coaching. Those kind of different components can fit together creatively in any way you like. Now, thanks to COVID, this has made our job so much easier. Believe me, 5 years ago, trying to sell online learning to organizations was a very, very hard sell. Today, they actually prefer it because now what's happening is, in the past, they used to like the trainer to physically travel around to all the different locations. I literally used to live on a plane, and it's not as glamorous as it sounds, traveling around and repeating myself over and over and over again in every office location of one of my clients. You do get very tired of that after a while, and it burns out quite fast. With this kind of online learning space now, it's not only better for the client because it's now more affordable. They're not having to pay for you to fly and stay in every single state that they have an office. It's also better for you in that there's large elements that are repetitive that you can replace with your online self-study component. So you're not repeating yourself over and over again, but you can still add that live element that is more contextualized to that particular organization. And these guys are liking it because it's, and write this word down, this is a word they love, it standardizes the delivery across all of their locations. Meaning that if it's one trainer who's kind of overseeing the process, but it's then got the core learning elements delivered as a self-study component, every single employee in every single location, in every single office they have all over the world, is receiving the exact same training, the exact same information delivered and applied to the exact same contexts, meaning it is standardized. There is a standard that all people are getting trained at. Whereas in the past, when it was individuals flying out, people may receive a slightly different version of that training. It may have been different trainers, albeit the same PowerPoint slides. And there was less of a standardized approach going out to the training materials. So by saying to them, I combine my core learning, the core fundamental training elements are delivered as online learning components, so it can fit around your staff schedules, it can fit in around their staff workloads. Then there may be some more contextualized elements that apply either to what kind of work that employee does, what kind of role they have, what kind of office they're in, what kind of industry they're in. That bit might be delivered either live online or live in person. That way you're creating enough context for the specific job role and organization, but keeping enough balance of standardization that everyone across the organization is receiving the same kind of training. So this is a really two sets of keywords, buzzwords, that if you really understand this concept and can communicate this to your client, contextualized, meaning we have slightly changed this training to meet your organization and your people, and standardized so that they're all getting the same thing. You combine those two things together with your face-to-face to go with the contextualized and your online learning part to go with the standardized, you are going to tick a lot of boxes. And as I said, thanks to COVID, they've made that online learning part now so much more accepted and a much easier sell. I've just seen that there's a question come up. Deborah said, could you also be something to consider for a school district without a master's degree or a PhD? Absolutely. So you don't have to be qualified in order to provide training and consultancy services to corporates or to education institutions at all. You are not delivering a qualification. So unless you're delivering a qualification under which the compliance requirements of each country would require you to be a qualified trainer assessor, registered or licensed under a registered training organization, if you're not delivering qualifications, you are just a trainer or assessor, sorry, not an assessor, a trainer or a facilitator of non-accredited training or personal or professional development training, right? That's what you're being hired for. And usually these organizations are just looking for what's called continuous professional development training, which does not have to be accredited, does not have to be licensed, and does not need to be a qualification. They will be engaging registered training organizations for that kind of content. They're looking for people like you who are experts in your topic to provide CPD, continuous professional development training. That's okay. Yep. So you don't need specific qualifications. Now, of course, if you do have qualifications, you are absolutely going to honk that trumpet loud because it just makes the hiring manager look good that they found a pro. However, that's certainly not going to strike you off the list if you're not qualified. It just gives you even more chance of getting the contract. That's all. So with that stuff in mind, the context, the standardization, the different ways that you can kind of deliver corporate and business training, there's also a number of different ways that you can sell it. So the first way that you can sell it is by saying, hello, Mr. Corporate. You can buy this training as a per employee price, a per head price. So just like in the B2C world, you're simply saying, dear hiring person, this course is $200 per head, full stop. How many heads do you want? That's one way of selling training, and that absolutely works. It's usually more effective when you have a smaller number of people in that organization they want to train. Now, the next way of selling is to create what's called bulk user licenses. And I'm going to use the word licenses because we're going to assume that some of your training might be delivered online. Okay, so when I say license, all we mean is access to the online course bit, right? Access to the LMS. So this is basically, this screenshot you have over here is actually a screenshot from one of my actual courses, online courses that I sell to corporates. This is purely a self-study online course. And inside your learning management systems, and I believe all of the top ones have this function, you can create additional prices. So you can go into your pricing section. So this is actually from Thinkific, but I'm pretty sure that the others have the same thing. You can press add an additional price, and you can, in the description of the price, actually put this one's for, if you can see the bottom one here, it says this one is for 10 users. This price is if you have 20 users. This price is if you have 30 users. This is if you have 50 users. Now, for larger organizations, I actually tend to do this price for up to 50 users, this price for up to 50 to 100, this price for 100 to 500, and this one for 500 to 1,000, and then I do 1,000 plus. So they're the different pricing I'd set for an organization. So basically what you're doing is you're incentivizing them to buy a higher package license, a higher bundle license, because you're going to slightly decrease the price per head based on the number of licenses they purchase or user access that they purchase. So they're going to say, oh my gosh, well, if I buy 50, this course is only $57 a head. So they're going to look at it like that, and they're going to calculate its better value, and boom, they then will purchase that one there. And this is great because it's all done on your LMS landing page. So it makes it nice and easy from managing it behind the scenes. So that's a bulk user license. Now, the other one I like to use is what's called an unlimited user license. So this is an example of one at the top here. This is where you go to your LMS and you press add an additional price. This price is going to be a subscription, and then you set the price per month. So I usually use this if they've got more than 1,000 employees that they want to put through the training. So this is where you would say this is a unlimited or unlimited users, for instance. So over 1,000, I call unlimited license, meaning that organization can put an unlimited number of people through that training, and they are actually agreeing to a subscription, a monthly fee of X per month. Now, obviously, $5,500 is just an example there for you, but that's another way that you can actually sell the training and sell the access. The other way you can do this instead of charging per month is you could just charge per year. And that's, again, really easy to set up inside the learning management system. You just simply go, this is add an additional price, add a subscription, X price per 1 year instead of per 1 month. And that's really cool as well, because what that will do is it will give them access for 12 months. They have that one URL that they can add all their staff to. And after 12 months, all of the access is automatically removed by the system. So all you would need to do is put in a calendar appointment in your diary, or set up an automation if you're using ActiveCampaign or anything like that, that just says when they join this particular course at 12 months, send them an email saying, hey, your access has been removed, would you like to renew? So that way it's all been being done automatically for you. So that just gives you some ideas as to how you might deliver your training. I'm going to check the chat box, and if any of you want to ask any questions before I pop to the next slide. So we've got, do you need to become CPD certified? I'm a doctor, psychiatrist delivering training and stress to burnout. So this is only if CPD is an interesting word, because in different countries it has different meanings. In most countries, CPD, continuous professional development, just means non-accredited training, because a lot of professions allow non-accredited training to account as training hours done. Okay, now some professions in some topics require CPD to be accredited or licensed approved training. Now that does tend to sometimes apply to the medical and the clinical industries more than anything, but not always. Okay, so the university I used to run is a medical university, and actually we were allowed to provide our medical and clinical professors with non-accredited CPD training for them to meet their CPD hours, but it depends on the subject matter that they're being updated for. So the answer to that is, what you're going to the organization for is to say, I'm an expert in this. This is what I can provide to your organization. Now, if they are looking for specifically accredited training, they will let you know, in which case you're going to say, I don't provide certified training. I provide general uncertified or non-accredited CPD training. But it's not going to stop you in the majority of the industries, no. Cynthia says, are there times that you actually sell a license for them to be trained in and use your techniques, or be listed as a qualified training provider? Okay, so licensing is a very, very, very different kettle of fish. It's a bit like franchising. Okay, so if you wanted to, for instance, what I could do here is I could train all of you in how to deliver my course creation method. And I could actually, you pay me and I give you all of my training resources, and you can go off and train Sarah Cordoner's course creation course, my concept to course program. And we basically make an arrangement to pay each other for that. That is a very, very big kettle of fish. It's called licensing, and that is definitely not something that I'll be covering in today's session. It's a very, very different topic. But yes, it can be done. It can be very profitable if done correctly, but I would highly recommend that you speak to an expert licensing consultant who will walk you through that process. There is a lot of legal agreements that are required for licensing your content so that your IP is protected. And it does work very much in the same model that a franchise would. Essentially, you are stepping away from the business and franchising, giving people independent use of your organization, its processes, procedures, and content, and acting on your behalf. Cool. Just wanted to confirm. Great explanation. Awesome. All right. Any other questions before I move to the next parts? Oh, and sorry for my croaky voice. I have a collapsed diaphragm. I was supposed to be in hospital this week. My appointment got cancelled because my insurance fell through. Yes. So I'm going on through. Yes. Pushing forward. All right. Next bit. B2B training delivery differences. Right. Now, this is one of the biggest shifts in the mindset we have to make with moving to B2B is that the employees, the staff, as in the bums on the seats that we're teaching, are not our client. Right? This is really, really interesting. It is the employer that is the client. The person paying for the training is the client. And this is a really hard shift for us educators and coaches to make because we're so focused on the individual. When it comes to making the sale, of course, we must focus on the individual when we're actually delivering the training. But to get the contract in the first place, we actually kind of have to forget about the people we're going to train at this beginning front end stage, because those guys are not the ones that are paying. The people who are paying is the client. So it's not Sarah that's the client. It is, McDonald's that is the client, if that's the person who I work for, right? And this is when we come to put our proposal together, when it comes to the outreach, we got to remember that it's the training manager or the HR manager that it is that we're really talking to. How are we going to make them look good? How are we going to help them do their job for them? And how are we going to do that in a way that's going to, get them a pat on the back from their boss at the same time? So that is the biggest thing to remember at this particular stage. I'm going to make this a tiny bit bigger. And sorry, the reason it's designed like this is because in the online course version, I stuck my head on the right-hand side over here. So I'll make it a bit bigger. Now, the next thing is if you're going to work with any business whatsoever, you are going to be required to be a legally registered company. As a sole trader, if you're just an individual sole trading company, and in all the countries, this is worded slightly differently, you have to be an LLC or a proprietary limited organization, company of some kind. Now, the process are all different in different countries, but you are going to really, really struggle to get any corporate business if you're just a sole trader, as in registered as a sole trader. All right, you can be an individual person. You don't have to have employees. So what I mean by sole trader is you can just be you and only you alone. But in terms of the legal registration of your business, you do need to be a company for this to work. You will not get looked at if you don't have your business registration number and you're not listed and registered as a company. It's just going to be really hard for you to do that. So I've just seen a couple of questions pop up there. I'm just going to check those before I moved on. Blah, blah, blah. Homeschooling. Can the training organization be a not-for-profit? Absolutely, yes. So as long as you are a registered business or a registered non-profit, absolutely fine. It's only sole trading registration that's just not going to work. in that process. Okay, so we've mentioned it takes a very long time for these processes usually to go through, so stick with it. You will absolutely have to submit a very formal and very thorough proposal. Now, most people don't get B2B contracts purely because they don't take enough time to put these proposals together. They are very time consuming, yes, and you may not get the job after spending hours of putting one of these together. But the rewards, if you're putting enough of them out there, are so worth it. And like I said, they will usually stick with you for a long time because it's such a, dare I word it like this, ball ache for them to go and find somebody else and go through that procurement process again. So I, as I've said, have given you a proper proposal document. We're going to look at what that looks like in a moment and what stuff you're going to need. But the cool thing is, in true Sarah style, repurposing, once you've actually completed one of these proposals for each of your main delivery areas, there's very little you'll ever need to change about it again. Really, you're only going to contextualize the little elements that talk about the client that you're going to be going and serving. So, they'll get this job done once. It's a really big job at the beginning, but it's going to be able to be reused and repurposed, and probably something that you can actually get a virtual assistant then to manage after you've kind of completed them for the first time. So you can systemize this down the line. Now, they are going to expect from you a proper curriculum and learning outcomes. A lot of business owners fail in delivering to corporate clients because they just chuck out an email and say, hey, I teach leadership. Are you looking for a leadership trainer? If so, it'd be great to have a chat. Right, that is going to get you absolutely nowhere. Never do that. In your proposal document template that I'm providing you, I highly recommend that you attach a proper course learning outline. Now, inside my Concept to Course program, inside my How to Create Profitable Online Courses course, and inside my free 5-day course plan challenge, Febby, if you could just write in the chat, it's sarahcordner.com/course plan challenge. That actually has my template that you guys can download and edit and use. Basically, what they want to see is the full course title, the course subtitle, the course description, exactly what's covered, the learning outcomes. What are these people going to get? What's in module 1? What's in module 2? What's in module 3? What are each of the lessons if it's an online course? If it's going to be a blended learning, what exactly does that look like? If it's a 6-week program, you're going to be supporting them for what happens in week 1, what happens in week 2, what happens in week 3, what happens in week 4, is there follow-up? They need to know exactly what it is that you're offering, how much time of the employees that's going to use, whether they're going to be expected to travel, whether they're going to be needing to pay you to travel, how much downtime they're going to have by taking your training and being out of their work. These are all things that they are going to need to know before they even reply to you. And if you do not provide this information in kind of the first initial contact, you're just going to be ignored. So this is how you're going to cut through all of those people that are just going, I'm a trainer in this. Do you need anyone? Right, you're going to come in looking so professional, so organized from the beginning that you're going to be pretty likely to get some kind of communication back with, which is exactly what you want. All right, your next thing is you will be likely with the larger organizations, particularly your big Fortune 500s, your ASX listed companies. There is probably, definitely with government, going to be some kind of tender process or procurement process that you may have to follow. So some organizations, depending on their policies and procedures, may get back to you and simply say, we don't have any tenders open at the moment, but please keep an eye on X, Y, and Z site. When we have a tender open for somebody like you, you're going to need to apply through our tender website. Tenders basically mean a company will pop out and say, hello, we are X company. We are looking for a training provider to deliver training on the following topic, and it must look like this, and here's our budget. And what you simply do is you log into that web page that the tender has been published on, and you're going to submit your proposal. You're going to submit your learning plan, your curriculum, and put in all of your pricing table, which is exactly why, again, I've provided you with a pricing table template that has worked for me in the past. So that will be a long-winded process. Now, a tender website in all of the countries are all quite similar. The best way to find out your tender websites is to just simply type in tenders and then your state, or tenders and then your city. And you'll find that cities and states also have different separate tender sites. You simply create a free account, you put in your email address, and you put in some keywords for the kinds of services that you want to deliver. And then you will basically get regular emails and notifications of open tenders that corporate and government clients have that you can then go in and apply for. So again, the first 1 or 2 times you do this, it's going to be a huge amount of work. But once you've done 1 or 2, there's going to be massive sections that you can just keep then copying and pasting over and over again for all of the tenders that come up. So here's an example of the Western Australian government tenders site. But again, there's particular companies that you want to work for. Those companies will have a tenders page on their website that you can simply go in, sign up to be notified about, and then sit back and wait for those tender openings to come through. So be prepared for them to come back and say that to you. Not all of them work like that, but I just want to give you like that preparation that it might happen, and you'll go, oh yes, you could even look really smart and say, do you have a tender or procurement process? And they'll go, oh, this one knows what they're talking about. And you'll get added to their supplier notifications email list, basically. So that's, I just want a bit of a by the way, but this is really cool. This is an example of the government Western Australian one. So if I was to log in here, it would list down all of the opportunities that match my search criteria, the things that I could teach or I could consult in, which is very fun. All right, next we have the fact that you will then, once you have, let's pretend, right, for instance, you follow the process I'm going to teach you today, you engage with the right person, you send a proposal through with your curriculum plan, with your cost breakdown. That organisation may then get to the point with you where they're like, yep, we definitely want you. Awesome, pop your champagne, have a celebration, have some aspirin, and then you're going to be sent a whole load of supplier application forms. So this is the case with pretty much every single business you will ever work for. It is a lot. You'll be asked to fill in a supplier form, which will ask you everything about your business, your name, your credentials, your business registration numbers, what insurance you have. I'll talk about that in a second. You will have to sign declarations to say that you adhere to anti-slave policies and all this kind of stuff. True, it's actually a thing. You've got anti-discrimination policies in place. Even if it's just you and it's you only, you're still going to have to tick all these boxes. And basically you will need to fill in your tax information, your payment details. This is so they can set you up on their system as a verified supplier to their organization. So that can take quite a while. You fill in all of those forms. They then go to their procurement department and they set you up as a supplier on the system. This now means that you are approved to provide services to that organization. But that's not the final step. After they have basically agreed what your delivery is going to look like, you set your dates, they've now set you up on the system as a supplier. The next thing they will do is issue you a purchase order number. So your procurement department will usually write a single line saying, here is your PO, right? So that means here's your purchase order number. That means on any invoice you send them, you have to make sure you quote that purchase order number. If you don't, be prepared for your payment to be delayed by at least 6 months, right? You have to put that PO on. It's just the process that works with B2B. You'll get used to it. The first time you do this, it might be a little bit confusing, but it's very, very simple. As long as that number is in their invoices that you send to them, all should be a-okay. And I highly recommend that when you plan out your proposal, and there is a section in here for terms and conditions, that you make sure that the majority of your payment is received up front. All right, this is just a process that I recommend you have as your terms of policy, because with these organizations, you are going to have to contextualize your training, meaning you've got to kind of change some of it to speak their language. You may have to use, change some of the content and case studies to really be about their kind of environment that they work in. And that is going to take up time on your part before the training's even delivered. And so you're going to want that payment up front for you to be able to account for the time you're going to be spending doing that bit of contextualization, setting up their particular organization's login on your learning management system. Maybe you might duplicate your online course and make a version just for them and keep it hidden and private so that no other public can see it. And I'll show you what that looks like in my system today. Just so that you kind of get that money up front. And generally speaking, talking about money, is I usually will invoice them a bulk up front, usually around 60% up front, approximately 20% in the middle, and then 20% on completion. However, saying that, these are terms that you can choose in your business, obviously. Saying that, the larger organizations will normally have a fixed policy of how they pay, and you just have to accept their payment terms. That's just, again, how that process tends to go. And it's very, very common for them to do an upfront payment, a midterm payment, and a completion payment. So be prepared for it to be split into 3. However, you do have some flexibility to negotiate what those percentages are across the 3 milestone payments. And you also have some negotiation around what dates or deadlines those payments are to be made by, based on the delivery plan that you've put together in your curriculum. All right, cool. Now, the next thing, the final thing that will happen is once all of that's gone through, you will also have to sign legal supplier agreements. That's just, again, a thing that you don't hire slaves. You've got an anti-discrimination policy, you've got liability insurance, you've got indemnity insurance, blah, 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 blah. So let's just talk about those briefly. You will not get a corporate contract without having insurance. Now, all of your industries are different, so I'm not giving legal advice here. However, at minimum, to deliver training to a corporate, you will need professional indemnity insurance. Usually, especially if you're delivering on government contracts, up to a minimum of $20 million. So that's specifically applicable to Australia. At least $20 million cover and indemnity insurance, and you will need at minimum public liability insurance. That is more likely to apply if you are physically going to their workplace. Obviously, if you fall over and crack your head open in the training room, they're going to want to know that you're going to be able to cover your own medical fees, or if you injure somebody with a stapler, that you're going to be able to cover anything like that as well. So again, that will depend on your industry. It will depend what your area of specialization is, what country you're in. Generally speaking, they will usually want $1 million cover or more for that, because you will actually be covered by their insurances when you are in their physical building. They just need to see that you've got it for cover. Now, again, those prices are going to vary dramatically. I'm in Australia. In my insurance, I pay around $3,000 a year to have that cover. So for me, I find that not very expensive when you consider the kind of contracts that are available to you for that kind of pricing. But it depends on your industry. Okay, so I just want to put that disclaimer there. If you are in high risk industries, it's going to be considerably more than that. If you're teaching in work health and safety, for instance, if you're teaching in medicine, some of those insurances can be significantly higher. So just to give you a heads up, my recommendation for finding these insurances is to contact an insurance broker. You tell them about your industry, what you do, what you're teaching, how you teach it, because they will want to know, is it face-to-face or is it only online? Is it written content? Is it video content? Is it downloadable? Is it not, right? They're going to ask all these questions. They will then advise you what insurances you're going to need. That's the best way to do it, is just use and abuse those insurance brokers. That's exactly what they're there for, is to tell you what you need. All right, you will also need to do formal tax invoicing. So you will be needing to use accounting software like Xero, like MyOb, right? Like any of those platforms. If you just send a invoice that's been chucked together in a Word document, it's probably not going to fly. You need to have a proper tax invoice, and you need to have your logo on top of it, and it needs to look professional if you are going to be moving into this space. Now, I know this sounds very scary and very, very overwhelming. This is really standard, and you will get used to this process, okay? And once you're set up with these suppliers, you know, like I say, from then on in, you're probably just going to get a phone call from James from training, and he'll be like, oh, hey, Sarah, can you like possibly pop in next month? We've got 3 more people who need to be trained. You're going to go, yeah, sure, that's fine, in an email. And he'll just say, just shoot your invoice through. That's how easy it is from the point at which you're set up. It's just the first time you get set up, you're going to go through all these formalities. From then on in, it's pretty informal most of the time, just to reassure you. There. All right, some other differences, as I've mentioned, you're going to have to contextualize. So let me give you an example for this. I don't know if you've ever heard, those of you in Australia will have heard, or New Zealand, of like Jim's Mowing and Jim's Electrics and Jim's, what's the other ones? Jim's Pools. Right, this is basically a franchise that they wanted to put all of their franchisees through business training. So they came to me and said, we know that you teach business. Can you teach it, but for our business? So Jim's came to me and said, here are all of our policies and procedures, dump. Here is everything our franchisees have to know when they start and continue running their franchise business with Jim's, dump. And they went, we want you to basically deliver your training, but we want you to include all of Jim's policies, all of Jim's procedures, all of Jim's stuff that a Jim's franchisee needs to know. And we want it in a private Jim's online learning portal so that we can get reports as to what our franchisees have actually been doing and progressing through their franchisee training. And so what we do in the learning management system, if I just take you back to a dashboard here, if I still have them in here right now, let's type in Jim's. Oh, Jim's. Did we remove this one recently? Here we go. So what we did is I basically duplicated my standard training. So what I recommend you do is, for everything you're going to go to a corporate for, create a bog standard version of it, right? That basically would apply to absolutely anyone, anywhere, in any business. And just keep it there as your bog standard template version. Then all you need to do, let's say you get a new client, let's pick on Cadence. Let's say that the Western Australian Police Force decide to hire Cadence for her training in, you know, post-event trauma, right? So all Cadence would do is click on this little button here and press duplicate. Now, all of the learning management systems have this function. So you're going to press duplicate. It will then open up a second version of that course. And all you're going to do is then just slot in some of the contextualized elements. So it might simply say, I tend to keep the basic training the same. I don't change any of the formatting or branding or anything like that, but I will have a specifically contextualized welcome video. So I'll say, hello, Western Australia Police Force. Thank you so much for joining this training. I know that you guys experience X, Y, and Z things in your job every single day. And this is why we need to make sure we have trauma reduction training or post debriefing from events, blah, 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 right? So we'd have a contextualized and branded welcome video with the client's logo, the client's colors, the client's style guide on the slides that we use if we're using slides. I would create a thumbnail that is for that particular client so that that client logs in, they see their company's colors, their company's logos, they know that it's for them. If you're referring or creating case studies, one of the things I did with one of my clients is I said to them, what are some of the incidents that have happened in your business? And they actually told me some stories and said, you know, this happened, this happened, this happened. This is why we need this training. So I basically re-talked through incidents that had happened in their organization and said, and this is why this is important. If you don't do this in your work, this is the consequences of what can happen and has happened in this business, right? So you can start contextualizing in that particular way. When you're talking about a particular situation or thing or incident, whatever it might be, you can refer directly to one of their policies and procedures or one of their handbooks or one of their employee guides, right? Or one of their departments or people that they might go and talk to about that thing more. So you're not having to be the expert in everything to do with their business, but in that initial consultation stage, you're going to be finding out from that client, what are some of the things that these people really must know when it comes to doing this thing in your organization. And that's how you can start contextualizing this. Now, you might note on the bottom here, there's some symbols. If you can't see this, I'm really sorry. I'll just zoom in a little bit. This is hidden and it is private. So this is a setting that you can set inside the settings area of the course. What this means is nobody can see it and nobody can enroll in it. It basically is completely hidden. So this way, when the client comes to me, I know they've only got 50 places, for instance. Let's say they've bought 50 places on this course. When the client says to me and say, hey, we need to enroll Dave, right? I get my team to manually do that from the back end. So that way, Dave gets sent an email with his unique login information. That way, we can track in his progress reports over in advanced reporting. We can actually track what Dave's when Dave's logged in, what he's watched, how far he's got. We can download that Excel sheet and give it to their employer, and they can get a proper progress report of who's in. We're not getting anyone enrolled who's not got permission or authorization to be enrolled. And also we're keeping track of the numbers of people that have been enrolled in that. So if they do exceed over their 50, if they've bought a 50 user license, we can actually contact, the manager and say, I'm really sorry, but Dave's actually number 51. Do you want to upgrade to the next package? Right. So that just gives you that full control, but allows individuals to be tracked and monitored in the reporting as well. All right, see some questions. I'm going to just open up and check. Oh, sorry, Febby, it is sarahcordner.com/course plan challenge. If you go to my sales pages document in Google Sheets, you'll find that in there. Sorry, everyone. Okay, in the proposal, would you offer 3 packages? Oh, Cadence, you're pre-viewing this. Yes, there is, and there's actually 3 package option gaps for you in the template, which I'm going to show you. If the organizations don't currently have a request for the training that I have to offer, is it best to cold call them and ask? Absolutely. So I'm going to be showing you how to reach out to these people at the moment, but they do not have to have an open tender or an open request for tender for you to actually knock on their door, bang it down slightly, and say, hey, pick me, I'm here to help. Definitely. Looks like you have to pay a subscription for some tender sites. Yes, you do for some of them. However, all of the government ones and all of the local council ones are absolutely free of charge. Right, so government and council do not charge for access to their tender processes. The ones that you'll be referring to are businesses who have basically decided to curate different tenders from different sites. So that will be a private organization who is basically acting as a curator of different tenders. Now they can be really, really useful, because what they will do is they will actually suck in all of the open tenders from all of the different state, national, council, and individual organizations' tender processes. So they actually save you a heap of searching work going to all these different platforms. But until you're ready and you've done a couple and you have all of your documents ready, don't necessarily need to start there yet. I think from the local councils, local governments, states and nationals, you will get enough tenders to apply for, I think, and reaching out to the individual organizations. Okay, sounds like an induction for Jim's franchisees. Yes, that's exactly what it was. Context, it may include geographic areas, rural, remote, and city. Yes, they do. Cool. All right, so I'll just keep moving on as we go through on here. Right, the next thing you might do, so you're talking about geographic and stuff there, Cadence, is the other way that you might sort of change or contextualize your bog standard version is based on the different types of employees. So the best way to imagine this, I'm going to just use leadership as an example here because we can all relate to that. I might have leadership for administration team. I might have leadership for the executive team. I might have leadership for the middle managers or the supervisors or the frontline managers. So you can see here how I can kind of take a bog standard set of training, but I can create different versions based on the different kinds of employees that might go through. And that's really clever because you're essentially creating 3 brand new packages from the same training course. And it's going to get that client to buy maybe 3 sets of user licenses from you, one for the basic, one for the executives, and one for the middle management, rather than just having one course that is going to have everyone going in it. So not all topics will work well with this, but there are some topics where, what you're going to teach to the newbies is going to be very, very different content to what you would teach to executives. And so in that case, I'd recommend you simply create 3 different products for those 3 different levels of employee, or the different types of employee you might work with. So you might have a different kind of training for the WHS team, the work health and safety team, compared to what you might have for the administration team, again, right? So you can be really smart with just creating a few different tweaks to make it a different course for a different group of people, and therefore getting yourself another contract from the same employer, right? Be smart. So again, it's your course, but it's presented in their branding. If you're creating something from scratch, don't put it your logos, your branding, your colors. Put it in their branding, their logos, their colors. One of the things I often ask my clients is, do you have a PowerPoint slide template that you would like me to use? Do you have a style guide that you would like me to use? This really gives a much more personalized professional experience, and they really appreciate that the training has been contextualized especially for them. And it allows you to add a higher price because you can say the words, I will contextualize this in your branding for your business, which looks great. As a perfect example, the template I'm using right here, I was actually asked by Thinkific to develop this training and put together for Thinkific. I said to them, can I use your template? This is Thinkific's template. This is Thinkific's branding. This is Thinkific's logo at the bottom here. So this is a classic example, right? I'm talking the talk here, walking the walk, is exactly how I do that. Client asks me if I can create some training for them. Sure, no worries. Let me do it for you in your stuff to make it even more for you. And you can increase the price because of that. Cool. So we've talked about having hidden and private courses for those corporate clients so that it's private, no one else can see. Now, the other thing you can do with these platforms is you can actually add members of their staff as analytical users to your learning management system. So you can actually go in, if I'm just going to go and click on one of these courses here. I won't do it because it's going to show people's email addresses. But let's say that Cadence is the manager of this particular mining company that I'm working for. I can go into add Cadence as a user, and then in her profile, I can say, make Cadence a analytical user. And what that means is when Cadence logs into the school here, that she will be able to see all of the users that are signed up, and she will be able to download the progress reports. She won't be able to change my courses. She won't be able to edit anything. She won't be able to see any of my income. She won't be able to contact anyone that has anything else to do with any of my other courses, but she will be able to be kind of like an analytical report manager, if you like, of her group of people in her program, which is very, very clever. So it even takes away that need for you to do the reporting for your client as well, which is cool. Question, who owns the course? You. Okay, so you own your IP. You are simply, it's your IP, it's your content. You are not giving it to them unless you're licensing it to them, of course. You're just presenting it in their branding so that they know that it's for them, and you are charging extra money for that, of course, as well, rather than it just being in your own branding. So absolutely, you own the IP. You're just delivering training to them, but it just makes it look and feel better to those people who are taking it because it feels like it's part of their business training. Would you include your own branding on the training? So the only thing I would usually include is, as you will see, this was delivered for Thinkific over here, but I had sarahcorn.com in the footer. So this here, just because I was delivering it publicly, shows that it's actually my training content. I am the facilitator of this training, and I'm the expert that's actually delivering this. So although it's in their colors and their fonts and their logos, it's still me. I'm still the person who owns this. Cool. Alrighty. Nice, nice, nice. And okay, certification. Now, this is always an interesting topic when it comes to doing corporate training. Now, there is a language issue here in some cases. Registered training organizations who are delivering accredited or certified or licensed training are allowed to say that they're providing a certification, right? Because certification in Australia means it is accredited training. So in different countries, there are different kind of pedantics around these words. Don't worry too much about it. I'm just telling you that FYI. So instead of saying I provide certification in this course, I simply say I provide a certificate of completion or a certificate of attendance. Okay, so this is the word you want to use: certificate of attendance or completion, right? And what this basically means is you can create a certificate for them. It has their name, it has the date of completion. You can put an expiry date on there. This is a very smart move. If you have something that needs to have refresher training once a year, of course you do, right? Put an expiry date on there as 1 year from the point at which they did the training. Why? Because then they've got to get you back next year to redo it again, all right, for the fresher training. So by saying that it's a certificate of attendance or a certificate of completion, you basically are keeping yourself both legal, but also not having any misconstrued ideas that it may be accredited training. Your people get a completion certificate, but you're not claiming to be offering accredited training of any kind. All good? Nice. What's the name of the new course you have just uploaded? This isn't a new course. It's actually been in there for a little while, but this is called how to, let me just put it, how to sell your training to B2Bs. So how to, let's just put corporate. If you type in corporate in your search bar, there it is. How to get corporate clients to buy your courses and training. This is in there with all of the templates that I'm about to show you. All right, let's get moving forward, shall we? Next, we're getting closer to how to actually do this in the first place. Nice move. How do we actually find these people in the first place? Let me make this a bit bigger for you guys. 20 a bit bigger so you can see it. Okay, first of all, who is it that is actually making this buying decision in the first place? Because it's not Jenny that's sat at the desk. It's not Sarah that's going to be, the employee. The person who is most likely that you're going to talk to, at the beginning at least, is going to be something like the training manager, HR manager, head of training, director of training, head or director of people development, workforce development manager, workforce development director. These are the kinds of people or job titles you're going to be looking for first of all and doing your initial outreach to. So let me just talk about a couple of ways that I've actually scored very, very decent corporate or government contracts. Now, the first actual contract I got was with local government in the UK. And all I did was reached out to them at the time. It was snail mail. It was a letter. I simply sent a letter saying, hello, my name is, I'm a trainer in the following topics, and I would love to provide training to the community in these following topics. Please, can we have a chat? Right. So I sent a letter out. I think I followed up with a couple of phone calls and eventually got chatting to the right person who said, this is very interesting. Actually, we do have a budget for training. We had no plan of what on earth we were going to do with it, but this kind of suits. So you will find with local government, more often than not, particularly really busy ones that are under-resourced and understaffed, they will have a budget and they hadn't even planned what they were going to do with it. So you come along kind of like the hero on the top of a horse who is giving them something to spend it on. And they're just going to be like, woohoo, yes, thank you. This is great. Please, can you do it all? Right? This is exactly how I got my first contract. And there was a contract that I got that was over $2 million from exactly the same method. I sent an email saying, hey, here are all the things that I teach. Can I work with you in any way? Can I provide this to your organization? And her exact words were, oh my God, we've got until the end of the month to use up the budget and we had no idea where to start. This works. Can we start the contract? Can you invoice us by the end of the month? I went, sure. It was over $2 million worth of training. That was it. So I've said to you, I've started this with, this is going to be hard. It's going to take a long time. But the other side, and by the way, this is the best time to reach out to organizations right now because they literally have about another 60 days to use up their end of financial year budgets. And I'm telling you now, most of them probably haven't because they don't know where to begin. A lot of these can be extremely serendipitous. You've got extremely busy training managers or someone who's sat on a budget and literally doesn't even know how to find professional trainers or what even to provide training in. If you are constantly putting yourself out there saying, this is what I teach, here's a proposal, here's what I'm going to plan to put together for you, here's how it will be delivered, there will be times when people will just ring you going, oh my God, it's going to be a flustered EA, executive assistant, going, thank God, this job's been put on my list that I didn't even know what to do. So it's pretty cool. So this, by the way, is another sneaky job title, is executive assistants. So this works well in the more smaller, or just about that wrong, in the more smaller organizations. Normally in these organizations, particularly when I was at the university, things like that, it is the executive assistant who is not in any way trained in training who's gonna get palmed off with this job. There is X dollars in the budget. We need you to find a trainer, and can you sort it all out? And they're like, oh, I don't know anything about this. And if they receive an email from you, they're usually going to pick up the phone, most likely crying, saying, thank you so much. You've just saved my bacon, right? This has happened to me a lot of times. So that is one way, direct outreach. I'm going to show you how to find some people in just a second. But the first best way is quite literally this. Let's say there is actually a town, let's say, I don't know, Boddington. I live in Boddington, so I'm just going to type in Boddingtonshire. Type it in. You're literally just going to reach out to them, contact us, boom, and I'm just going to phone them up and say, who is the best person to speak to about providing training to your staff or your community? Right, that's the first thing I'm going to do. It's the easiest way. They've even got an email address. I'm going to send an email for luck. And don't be afraid to go old-fashioned, do some snail mail as well with exactly the same thing. These people are extremely busy. They have people doing 10,000 jobs. The more ways that you hit them, the more angles you hit them, the more chance it's going to be that someone's eventually going to call you back. All right. So I would phone, I would get the name of the person, I would then send an email, and then I'd follow that up with a snail mail saying, hello, Jeffrey, I've been told that you're the person to contact regarding X. Please find herein my proposal and my curriculum outline and my budget. And I really look forward to hearing from you. Here's my mobile number. Call me at any time of day or night. Right. Done. Boom. That's another way I do that. So literally contact the organization directly. Now, the next thing we want to do is reach out to the individual directly. So let's pretend we want to go for a really big company, right? Someone tell me who you would love to get as a client. Someone tell me who would be your ideal client. Lots of pings going on. Who's your ideal client? Who would you love to get a contract with? So just pop it in the chat. Government or mining, Tesla, okay, awesome. Let's just pick a mining company. I'm just going to go with that. What are you going to do? LinkedIn is your friend, my friends. What you're going to do is go to, first of all, LinkedIn, go to the search box. Let's pick a mining company. Let's go with Rio Tinto. It's a big multinational Fortune 100 organization, IPO. So we're going to type in, no we're not, we're going to first of all type in who we want to talk to. So let's first of all find the training manager. So we're going to type in training manager. We're going to hit enter, and then we're going to go down to our filters. So we want to now, inside these filters, go to all filters over here. Let me just move the picture of my head out of the way over here. We want first connections, second connections, and third connections. So first means we are already friends with them. Second and third means we're not yet connected with them, but they're connected to someone that we are already friends with. Then we want to choose the location. So let's say I just want to begin with Australia to start off with. And then we want a specific company. So let's press add a company, and I want Rio Tinto. All right, so we're going to find that company. Boom, there is that business. Start with one at a time to begin with, or this will become overwhelming. It's very tempting to want to click all of them. We can also check past companies, what industry they're in, blah, 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 blah. This is on the free plan, by the way. You can even add in different kinds of keywords as well. But I'm just going to press show results. And boom, we've got change manager at Rio Tinto, organization change manager, learning and development specialist. Oh no, that she's done Rio Tinto, leadership and development specialist at Rio Tinto. Boom. Right. So these are the people I'm definitely going to want to connect with. So first of all, I'm going to go connect. definitely want to send them a private message. But what I actually do is, let's pretend Kate Hansel sounds like she's a really good person for me to start with. All right, I'm going to go to Rio Tinto's website next. Here's what we're going to do. Rio Tinto, let's go and find their site, global, or I could go to Australia, that probably would be better. Now, there is a free Chrome extension that you can use called Hunter. Hunter.io is completely free of charge. You add it as an extension to Chrome, and when you hit this, it's going to tell you what the email, what's it called? What's the word when the way it's laid out? What the email layout is, convention, that's it, what the email convention is. So this tells you that at Rio Tinto, the email addresses go first name dot last name at riotinto.com. So we know that this person's email address is going to be kate.hansel at riotinto.com. Right? Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Now I would actually reach out to all these people by going like tom.craig@riotinto.com, because we know from hunter.io that there is a set convention that organization tends to use for all of their company email addresses. So basically you would go through all of the different titles: executive assistant, workforce development manager, training director of training, head of training, and I'd keep going through for the same company, adding all of those people, really hyper focused on that one organization. I'm going to email them, I'm going to send a private message, and I'm going to do my best to try and find a way of reaching out to these people directly via snail mail. What office are they at? I'm going to send a literal snail mail letter saying to Kate Hansel, Leadership and Development Specialist, Rio Tinto, and then put their address in. Now she's based in Queensland, so I'm going to find the Rio Tinto Queensland head office, send the letter there, and it will, through their internal mail, be redirected to her pigeonhole. Boom. Right, this is some stalker level shit right here, but it works. Okay. Can you tell I'm a cop's wife? Right, this is exactly how you do it. Now, the cool thing is, before you will completely freak out and run away and go and drink wine at 9 o'clock in the morning on me, is you can get a virtual assistant to do all of this for you. So one of the things I'd recommend you do is either open up a Trello board or open up a Google Sheet or something, whichever you prefer to work in. And I'd start getting your VA to collect these names inside that sheet or Trello board and say, you know, I have sent this email, I've sent this letter, this has been posted, so that you're kind of keeping on track of all of them. And, you know, if there is follow-up, people start communicating with you, you're going to want to start keeping that nice and organized so you're not contacting millions of different people, because then it's just going to look really messy and unprofessional. So at that point, if you've got 2 or 3 talking to you, you can go, okay, actually, it's all good. I'm actually now talking to James Williams. Thank you so much for, you know, for chatting with me. I'm sure I'll be in touch with you soon. At the moment, I'll just keep my communication with James, so that at least everyone knows that it's all nice and organized. Really cool way. So this is definitely my favorite way of finding the name, using the Hunter.io to get the naming email convention, and then outreaching that way and following up with the letters as well, and having all of your proposal pre-written and posted and attached to both the emails and inside the letter itself, and they will get sent to the right person. All right, all cool so far? Nice. Do I use Sales Navigator? There are a number of tools like, I think it's Sales Navigator is the one that has all of the organizations on it, right, Chad? Where they have all the B2B listed directory in it. Am I thinking of the right one? You can turn your microphone on if you want.
Hey, Sarah. Yeah, it's the one by LinkedIn, LinkedIn's Sales Navigator.
I personally don't. I find it very expensive. Personally, I don't have LinkedIn Premium or anything like that. I have found that this method, just using the free plan, works perfectly fine for me. I mean, literally, if you throw enough darts, you'll hit the board at some point. And that works for me. And I use my internal systems like my Active Campaign customer record management system. I'm using that to kind of keep notes and keep track of all of my client engagement. There are a number of companies that actually have all of the B2B directories built into it and act as kind of like your sales management system as well. Some of those are quite affordable, and I can't remember the name of one that's just reached out to me to us to promote them. But there's lots of them where you basically pay a monthly subscription and you get up-to-date lists of current email addresses, job titles. You can outreach to them directly from the platform, and then you can move them all around based on who you're talking to, who's in communication, who said no, who said yes and gone ahead with. I would say before you really move into that phase, I would just go with the free methods to begin with. I'm all about lean. Once you've got yourself a few decent smackaroonie contracts that can afford to then pay for these tools and softwares, absolutely upgrade if it's working for you and you're enjoying that kind of work. But I would recommend you do a year of this work before you decide if it really is for you. It requires a lot of energy, and it's likely to require a lot of travel, and you are definitely going to need a full-time administrator to help you keep on top of it, because your student numbers are going to multiply. Who is it today? Donna just said you've got 80 students like that, just from one client. And if these are, workplace-based learning, it can turn into quite a heavy administrative load. So I would go a year. And then if you're like, I really enjoy this, I love this kind of work, I've got the systems and the staff in place to support me when I'm literally on the road all of the time, then I would start turning up the ways that you're reaching out to people and start paying for some of these services to help you scale it out, basically. Was an existing client easier sell? So you're backing up my point. Once you've got that client, it's a license to print money, which can be quite fun. All right, cool. So we've talked about reaching out to the clients directly. We've talked about using LinkedIn. And by the way, LinkedIn is how I got my contract with a national bank, and they ended up hiring me for years to do all of their staff professional development training. Literally a private message on LinkedIn. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was scam, but I answered it anyway, just in case. Mind you, that was quite a long time ago. All right, the other way that you can get yourself corporate clients, and this is actually how I earned my first $1 million in a 12-month period, was speaking at conferences. This is so underestimated. The power of this is so underestimated. And so many experts have kind of got to this aloof position of, I'm not speaking for free. Don't you know who I am? Right. And I'm like, right. Literally see this as free marketing, right? I would pay thousands to get in front of a room full of 2,000 or 3,000 people that are my target customers. So to turn up for free for an hour, well worth it. Right? It's literally free marketing that I would otherwise pay thousands of dollars for. All you need to do, guys, right? And you're really lucky if you live near a city. I live very far away from one. But if you live near a city, if my nearest city is Perth, or let's say I want to go to Cadence, I'm going to pick on you again. Let's pretend we want to get mining clients, right? This is a good client to go for because they literally have tens of thousands of employees. You get one of those contracts, you're going to have more work than you can ever do from one client alone, right? This is why going for the big guys can sometimes be worth the effort it takes to get through the door. So let's go here and type in conference, mining conference. I'm going to type in, oh gosh, I can't spell, mining conference. And then I'm going to type in square brackets, Perth, Western Australia, for instance. And boom, it will actually come up with all of the upcoming conferences. There's actually a heap of directories. So what I tend to do is sign up to the directories. Most of them are free. Don't bother paying for them at this stage because you can find all of the conferences that are taking place in your local conference centres, your local exhibition centres. So I'd simply, I actually do get my virtual assistant to go through and do all this, add them all to a Google Sheet. And then I simply send them out a kind of a generic message saying, hello, I'm an expert in, here are the things that I'd love to provide a presentation on. P.S. I will do this completely free of charge. And this is a big advantage because professional speaking, public speaking is the second highest paid profession in the world. I actually don't know what the top one is. I should know that. But I think it was back in 2015. It might be outdated now. In 2015, it was the second highest paid profession in the world by the hour. You can be looking at anything from $800 to $20,000 per keynote presentation, depending on who you are and what you're speaking at. So other speakers are reaching out to these guys going, my fee is $2,000 plus travel, plus expenses, plus a puppy. You're coming in going, I will do this free of charge. And you're going to be quite likely to get the gig. So this is something that works really, really well. You get given your slot on stage. You have anything up to 3,000-4,000 people in that room who are all your target audience. And you get to stand and do an amazing presentation. You will have a queue of people at the end. You absolutely will. Usually you're not allowed to sell from stages, but you can simply say, I provide training and staff training and coaching and consulting on this topic, I'd love you to come and have a chat with me afterwards. I've got some business cards at the bottom of the stage here. I'll see you down the bottom of the stage, and a heap of people will flock to the front and just grab your business cards or have a chat with you. The goal is to get in front of the board. So, or the decision makers. So when I have those initial conversations and they come to the stage and they grab a business card, oh my gosh, we're all going to have to print business cards again after 2 years. This is where you basically, your number one goal here is make sure you get their business card back. But your goal should be convincing them to say, can we please connect to arrange a time for me to come in and meet you and your team? That's what you really want to do, because if you can actually physically get in that building or have a Zoom call with that team, that's where it turns into a negotiation conversation. It's where it turns into that sales conversation, rather than it just being, oh, great, we're friends. your goal there is, can we make an appointment for me to come and meet your team and tell you about this particular proposal that I have for you? Of course, by which point you're going to have a whole proposal ready, especially for them in their branding, and you're going to send it through to them to make it look like you're so organized, and it's going to be good. So this is incredible. Honestly, I've gone and done free talks. I had a 20-minute slot, which I was gutted about because I had a whole hour's presentation. I was only given a 20-minute slot. I came away with over a $300,000 contract 2 months later from someone that came up to me on the stage. So it is worth it. Really, really is. Cool. Conferences. We've talked about picking up the phone and calling them. People are terrified of the phone these days, myself included, but pick up the phone. These people are at work. They are employed, unlike us who can choose to ignore this. When we phone an organization and say, I would like to speak to Dale, please, the phone gets put through to Dale, and Dale has to answer it because Dale is at work and it's his job to answer his phone, right? So if we get over our own fears of doing this, it's actually way easier to talk to these corporate clients than it is to talk to B2C who are going, I don't want to answer that, I'm going to go look in the fridge, right? It's a lot easier. Okay, publicly listed companies. This is another smart thing that I do. I like working with the big Fortune 500s and ASX listed companies, right? So in Australia, our IPO list is called the Australian Stock Exchange, so ASX, right? 2022. So this is our stock exchange businesses, and let's type in directory. So if you are in the US, or even obviously you can still do this here, Fortune 500 2022 directory, click on whatever results come up and have a little look through what you've got here. But this will literally show you all of the organizations that are currently listed on the stock exchange, your IPOs, your companies that have millions of dollars a year allocated to their training budgets. So this will give you the names of them. These might be people you've never heard of before, right? These companies, some of them just trottle on by nice and quietly. Adairs, right? That does bedding and stuff. So I'm like, I would never have thought about contacting a bedding retailer, but they are a huge organization. So I'm going to go and find Adairs, and I'm going to go back to LinkedIn, and I'm going to find the training manager of Adairs. I'm going to use my hunter to find their organizational email convention, and I'm going to go and contact all the training managers of Adairs, because I know for a fact they're going to have a huge training budget because they're on the IPO list, right? It's part of their obligations as an international public offering company. Boom, another way that we do that. Another way that I've actually made a lot of money is by putting some shoes on my trotters and literally knocking on doors. So I physically walked around Perth for 3 days until I had blisters on my feet. I went into those huge glass fronted buildings, pressed random buttons on the elevators until I opened up into a corridor and knocked on the door. I went, hello, I'm Sarah. I'm here to speak to the training manager. And I made out that I had an appointment. Most of them just went, no worries, hang on a minute, I'll just buzz him through. I was like, sweet, sat there with my arms folded and my suit on, and this guy came out looking very, very confused. Do we have an appointment? Oh no, hi, but since you're here, I'm Sarah. It works, right? This, again, they're at work. If the reception calls them and says there's somebody out who'd like to talk to them, they're going to have to come and talk to you if they're free. If they're not, you'll get a message back from the receptionist saying, really sorry, he's in a meeting. Can I take your contact details? And you say, sure. Can I actually take his? All right, or hers, of course. Boom, snail mail. It is so old that it's sexy again. I personally had a lot of success with my book. Those of you who are in my book challenge this month, this is going to work well for you. I printed out a bunch of author copies of one of my books, and I posted it to the training managers of the top organizations I wanted to work for. I wrote a personal message in the front of the book saying, "Dear Helen, it must be amazing being the training manager of Rio Tinto. Here is a copy of my book as a gift to you. P.S. This is also a topic that I do staff development training in. I'd love to have the chance to have a chat with you on a Zoom call or pop into your office." And I had a few people go, "I've never been given a book before. Like, I'm this forgotten number in this giant organization." And it was really nice to receive a gift. And it's amazing how many people got back to me. I was like, yes. If you don't know who the training manager is, just put, and this is all I put FAO for the attention of training manager. It goes to their main head office, and then internal mail forwards it to the training manager. So you don't even have to know their name, which is very fun as well. So yay, that works well. Another way you get corporate clients is by listing yourself, registering yourself as a speaker on speaker bureaus or with speaker agencies. So speaker bureaus or speaker agencies basically just house a directory of speakers. You put in your name, your contact details, a description of you, what you're an expert in, a list of the different talks and presentations that you do. And boom, you belong to their database. And whenever then corporates come along to that agency or that bureau, and a lot of corporates and conference organizers use bureaus, they will say, yes, here are the people that we have who are experts in this topic. And then those corporations or conference organizers will actually contact you directly. Now, with a lot of these, they are private organizations. You will have a free listing option and you'll have a paid listing option. The free listing option basically makes you ignored. If you pay them, they will actually actively promote you, because the way they make the majority of their money is they take a percentage of every booking that you get. So usually they will work with the client to get you booked, book your days, book any travel or accommodation. It's pretty much always paid work, very well paid work at the rates that you set. And they just take a percentage of whatever the earning is before they pass that fee then on to you. So it's pretty cool getting in. It's a lot of admin. You've got to fill in a lot of information, but this is a great way to get a lot of corporate contracts. And the cool thing is once you've gone through a speaker bureau, you can then obviously develop a personal relationship with that client, and you can then go on and make arrangements privately between you and them from there on onwards, basically, which is cool. All right, we talked about tender websites, and this is another one. This is a trick I used a few years ago when I was living up in a remote town of Broome. I actually was looking on job sites for stuff that I could be a private consultant for. So I saw that there was a particular medical organization, an Aboriginal medical organization, who were looking for a training manager. And knowing how hard staffing was there, I basically reached out to them and said, look, if you get a training manager, it's going to cost you this many thousands of dollars per year on average. You're going to have to commit to those people. I know that budgets are renewed every year, and that's going to be really challenging. You're going to have to put them through all your training, blah, 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 blah. How about whatever it is that you need done, you just contract out to me as a freelance contractor or a consultant, and I will just come in and do most of those tasks for you for a fraction of the price. And it wasn't mean that I was devaluing my services. It just meant I can do this for you in probably one day a month rather than you employing somebody full time for it. And I actually got the contract. And it was a job that was advertised on Seek, right? So this is another clever thing you can do. If they're looking for that service, they're looking for that work, you're going to get the job if you reach out. It's very, very clever. Okay, cool. We're going to move on pretty fast. This is the last section pretty much now. We're looking at what needs to be in this training proposal. So I'm going to show you the template that I've given you guys inside the course area on your dashboard. Now, one of the things I recommend is I've given you a template, but you should definitely brand it in the client's branding. So for instance, if I was going to send this template out to Rio Tinto, I would use this little color dropper here. It's a free Chrome extension called Color Dropper. I would just press pick a color, hover over their red, click back on the dropper, and it tells me the hex code of their exact red branding color. And then I'd click on this again, press pick a color from the web, click on their blue, click on the color dropper again, and that's the hex code for their blue. I would literally go into Canva, because I've given you this in a Canva template, by the way, what I'm going to show you in a second. I would go back into Canva and I would change the colors to match their exact branding colors. It looks so much more professional. So what is this thing I'm talking about? Here we go. I would first of all pop the client's logo right at the top. Change obviously this template, you get the full editable version of this. Put in the date that you're currently sending this proposal for, and then change these colors to the client's branding colors over here. You may also want to put in some of their, their logo somewhere. I've got it up there already. And then down the bottom, you can't see it very well because my controller's in the way. Let me move this. You've also got to add in your business name and your logo. So you might choose to put your logo at the top there, but I sort of suggest that you put it down at the bottom because they're more important than you are. That's the way I do that. So that's a draft front end. I'm just going to check the questions before I move on. Would you connect with the person on LinkedIn? Absolutely. Definitely add them as a connection. Would you offer a lead magnet at the end of the presentation like you would B2C? So yes, definitely. I would always offer corporate clients something for free. A lot of these training managers, a lot of these people who are making decisions do like to do professional development training. They do like to keep improving their skills. So if you're giving them something that's going to help them do their job better, look better, be more confident in their work, they're pretty likely to sign up to it for sure. So yeah, if you're getting the right lead magnet for that kind of corporate employee, for sure, use the exact same principles that you would in B2C. Snail mail, how much information do you give people in snail mail? Everything. So this is where I will have a cover letter that will explain, hello, here's who I am, here's what I'm an expert in, here's the different training I provide. And then behind it, I would attach the full proposal printed out in color. And then I would also attach the full proposed curriculum outline. In the cover letter, I would let them know that this is just a suggestion and that we'd fully customize any training that we would put together specifically to meet their needs, their budget, and their staffing. Cool. All right. So training proposal, front page, and obviously you might change the picture based on them. For instance, if I was doing this for Rio Tinto, I'd probably grab some kind of mining image like this, and I'd paste that in on the back there, so it looks a bit more contextualized to their work. Have a table of contents. This is all editable, and then we're going to go straight into, and I've made notes for you on this as well, by the way. We're going to go straight into the leadership training for Rio Tinto. So make sure you make it really clear what exactly it is, and you're going to be writing about their needs, their business, their objectives, and why your training topic is critical for them. The biggest mistake I see people making and facilitators and consultants making is the first thing they do is talk about themselves. This is my business. We have been established since X year, and we do this and we do that, and we have been awarded this. Oh, right? No one cares about you. I'm sorry, they don't. They literally care about, have we spent the budget? Have I done it correctly? Is my boss going to think I'm an idiot or that I'm good at my job, right? That's all they care about. So it's going to be about them. And what you're really going to be doing is focusing in on their needs. So I'm going to just do this an example for Rio Tinto right now. Rio Tinto is an oil and gas mining organization, and they have compliance training to make sure that people are safe, and they obviously want to make sure that they have a workforce who can increase production so that they are maximizing public profits. They're an IPO, right? So we're just going to talk about them. This is what you need to do. If you don't have training, you cannot train your staff to have the full maximum production, which means you're going to have lower public pricing and higher chances, risks of injury and compliance and negligence claims and blah, 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 right? You don't have to go into that much detail, but you can just touch on it in a couple of sentences. However, our leadership training for Rio Tinto will make sure that all of those problems don't happen, all of these opportunities do happen, and everyone's going to live happily ever after. So I've actually put in here, inside the course, there is this particular slide is there for you. These are some of the things that you're going to mention on that first page. Will your training increase productivity? Will it improve their efficiencies in the business? Will it create standardization and uniformity of the way that staff follow work processes? Is it going to increase their performance? Is it going to increase the output of staff? Will it in some way create multi-skilled workers? Will it give people the opportunity to take on new responsibilities? Is it going to add to CPD or compliance requirements? Is it going to enable reduced supervision so that your supervisors and leaders can focus on more strategic income generating and product improving work? Is it going to save money from people being less efficient? Is it going to reduce wastage? Is it going to reduce any kind of product loss? Is it going to reduce compliance claims? Is it going to cause less conflict? Is it going to create a more positive work environment, reduce employee turnover, reduce sickness? Is it going to make people feel happier, more valued? Is it going to make people better at their job because they're more motivated? These are the kinds of things that you need to write on this first page. It's all about them. It's all about them. It's all about them. And this training is going to help this, and this thing happen. Boom, 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 boom. That's what's so important in that first page. The training manager is going to read that first page and go, well, why on earth would I say no to this? Like, if my boss knows I've turned down an opportunity that's going to give us all of these things and get rid of all of these problems, I'm going to look like an idiot. So you're just giving them no-brainer reasons to hire you. Then you have your training topics. So for some of you, you might have a number of different topics, right? A number of different things that you can teach. Summarize them on the second page, basically. So just simply, here's topic 1, leadership. We support trainers. We train staff from the very bottom line through to middle management, right up to executive level. Boom. Just one sentence to summarize what it is. Post-event trauma training. This is what we do. This is who it's for. This is what it is. This is the purpose of it. Boom, 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 boom. That's all editable for you. Don't forget, you're going to be changing the colors throughout the document to match the client's branding. You may want to add their logos to it. At the bottom, there is your contact details, your website, and your information. And this is where you're basically going to stick in your proposal. So I'm Sarah Cordiner, I'm the CEO, or I'm the facilitator, I'm a consultant, whatever word you prefer to use. And you're going to basically tell them exactly what it is that you're proposing. On the first page here, they've seen that you offer a bunch of stuff, but you might say, I am contacting you because I would like to offer you my staff training in X topic. This training is delivered over 6 weeks, where the first 2 weeks are self-study training. Then I come to your organization or I deliver it on Zoom. And this is what I'm proposing that it's going to exactly look like. Right? It's explain exactly and precisely what the training is and who it's for. Then you might have what's called the project timeline. People really like to see this. They like to see what will happen. And I've put a rough idea for you here when it comes to training. So you might say the first thing that happens is we do a training needs analysis. Basically, this is you sitting with the client saying, what do you need? Who needs it? Why do you need it? What problems do they have? What are the gaps in the skills that they have now compared to the skills you want them to have? Have there been any incidents? Are there things you want to increase? Are there things you want to decrease? What's going on? Tell me who we need to train and what we need to train them in. All right, so that's your first step. Then you're going to contextualize your curriculum. So you sent them a pretty standard curriculum plan in the first place when you were initially reaching out to them. This is the point at which you edit that curriculum and slightly change it based on their needs, their organizations, their case studies, their problems. And you're going to just give it a real nice, this is Rio Tinto's version, if we're going to be using that company as the example. Then, of course, you get everything approved, you do the contracts, you do the agreements, everything is organized. And then finally, we go into the training delivery, where you actually execute the delivery of the training. And then finally, you have the training evaluation and the reporting. So this is where you might give them a full progress report of what happened, things that worked well, things that didn't work well. You might give them copies of the student feedback that was collected, and then issuing certificates and invoices as maybe your final step. So of course, you might edit this based on your processes and procedures. You might add some more detail into this, but I've just given you kind of the main overall stages of what a process or a project timeline might look like in the corporate training environment. Then from there, as Cadence mentioned earlier, the package options. Give people really specific choices to pick from, and do not ever give them more than 3. The second there are more than 3 things to choose from is the second that people just get choice fatigue and it all goes out of the window. So remember on page 1 where you listed all the different things you could do. In this proposal, you're proposing one topic, okay? Only one. So now we've proposed in like the 3rd page, whatever it was, we are proposing that we're going to run leadership training for your executives. This is where on the packages, we're going to show them, remember back at page 1 over here, all the different ways that we could sell it to them. So what we might put in here, for example, is package 1 could be just the online version. This is completely self-study. Your people log in, you buy user access, you can buy up to 50, up to 100, up to this, or over 1,000. So you might just bullet point it down that if they get the online version, there's a couple of different prices, and it's all completely self-study. Package number 2, it might be that you're going to deliver a blended learning approach where half of it's self-study online with your core units and the rest is delivered with you, maybe online doing some group training elements, and it's going to be delivered over 6 months, and this is what it's going to look like. Boom, 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 you get this, you get this, you get this. And then package 3 might be that we're going to deliver this as a full day workshop. Like maybe I'll just come in for 1 day and deliver this as a 1 day training. Or maybe you're going to do, 3 visits over 6 months. We're going to come in every 8 weeks and do a next bit of the training or the next module of the training, whatever it might be. So these are just examples. I'm not saying these are the packages you should offer. These are just purely some examples for you to kind of play around with. You get to decide kind of what packages you might deliver, but you need to just make it so that they just have to pick one. The more you leave it to, what would you like? I can customize this. Tell me what you need and I'll make something for you. These people are not training specialists most of the time. They just want to go to their boss and say, which one of these would you prefer? Here's the budget. And they're just going to tell you which one they want. It makes your chances of getting a contract a lot easier when you just give them something to pick from. Cool? All right. Then you're going to basically break down the project in a bit more details for them. So again, project description, this is a leadership training where, we're going to deliver it over 6 months and we're going to do this and I'm going to turn up this many times. You're going to get progress reports. There'll be a certificate at the end, blah, blah, blah. You need this training because as part of your compliance, people have to do CPD. If they don't get updated in this stuff, people can't move up the business. You won't have any succession planning. You're going to have higher staff training costs. I don't know, right? So you put in your problems. The benefits of your training. So this is basically just going back to the slide near the end here where we're like, you're going to be saving on these kinds of costs. You're going to be reducing these problems. You're going to be increasing these benefits, blah, 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 blah. So you're just reinforcing these in bullet points down here. Then you've got the project costs. And people do like to see a cost breakdown. You're going to have to get okay with being extremely transparent about every element of your costing. So this will be, for instance, in fact, here's a document I prepared earlier that you have access to, all right? You may need to include your project planning and proposal preparation time. The fact that you've sat and you sent that proposal out to them before you even had a good discussion, right? That may have taken you an hour or so to put together. You calculate that in your cost. This is a very normal cost that's included in contracts, in budgets, in grants, in tenders. So don't be afraid to break that down. You may have different staff. So this includes, first of all, you may have staff administration, like say your contract literally comes with, you will have an administration point of contact for student inquiries, for tech support, for people using the platform. You're going to include their wages and your wages in this as well. You may have staff and volunteer costs. Now, by the way, I don't know if this applies to other countries, but in Australia, you can actually charge $45 per hour for volunteers. So that comes under the Volunteers Australia guidelines because volunteers still cost a lot of money to both take on board, to insure, to train, to do all of the administration. It's actually a legal thing, right? It's $45 an hour is what can be charged for volunteers. Just FYI. You're then going to need to include any travel and transportation costs. If you're traveling anywhere, if you're posting anything, sending anything out in the mail, please include your travel and accommodation. Oh, I've just been signed out. Who's playing with my thing? That'll be my team logging in as me. Sorry, let me just open that up. Right, cool, we're back. Woo! Then is there any printing? If you guys are going to be printing anything when you turn up for the training, if you're doing any face-to-face stuff, will there be handouts? Don't forget to calculate that cost. Development of your materials. So if you have had to put together contextualized PowerPoints, how many hours did that take you? If you've had to put together a whole new access portal on your learning management system, calculate those costs. A percentage of the cost for the platform itself. If you're paying per user, if you're paying per person in your email marketing software, include all of those costs as well, right? Because they're all going to be things that might add up behind the scenes. If you've got a hire venues, if you have internet, electricity, water, and usually speaking, you'll be doing it in their venue. But if you're hiring a venue where you're going to have different organizations coming into, you're going to need to consider all of that. The marketing and advertising, this is work that you've done prior to getting this client. So how much time did you spend kind of finding out who to contact and reaching out, doing the reach outs and all of that stuff? When the project's actually commenced, will there be ongoing project management? If so, that is a separate cost. That might just be you doing it, of course, but you might have a member of staff that's going to be doing that ongoing management. Catering, you'll need to decide with your client, will they be providing and paying for the catering as part of the program, or are you going to be expected to take those catering costs out of what you're getting paid? You will need to clarify that with them as well. Any kind of equipment that you might need to purchase, use, or hire as part of the training. Now, by the way, when you're using things like your own laptops and you're delivering training, you need to actually calculate that as a depreciating asset in your business. Every time you use it, it's a tiny bit more battered, it's a tiny bit more weared, and in actual accounting terms, it has depreciated, it has decreased, declined in value. So again, you can pass some of those costs on to your client. The fact that I'm using my own laptop, my own phone, my own whatever else I've got, I might add on an extra $20 for the sake of depreciation, wear and tear of resources. Okay, then you've got software costs. I've mentioned your learning management system, your email marketing software, any other kind of tech that you might be paying for that this client's going to be using in some way. There's going to be a co-contribution towards that you're going to chuck into the fee as well. And then of course, anything else that you might purchase on the day. Now, if I go to a client's office, I usually have a little mini suitcase. It's got my adapter plugs to go into their presentation screens. I might have a whole load of new whiteboard marker pens. I provide all of my own stuff because usually these people don't have it, right? Or they have like some manky old dry one that's been used for 20 years and no one can see what's being written on the board. So if you're buying your own board wiper pens, you're buying your own post-it notes that you're going to hand out. Maybe you've got little notepads that you've branded with your labeling that you're going to hand out around the room. Maybe you've got merchandise like pens or mugs that you're going to hand out around the room. Those are really nice touches to take to a corporate event. And I'd recommend that you pass that cost on to the client. All right, so if it's cost you $10 a mug and $3 a pen, you're going to stick those costs in. It's included in the training. It's all part of the package that they're receiving. You can also, completely forgot where I was going with that, pens. I was talking about pens. Oh yeah, like books. So if you guys have books, you may also like to include a copy of your book or your workbooks and things like that pre-printed for the clients as well. Again, include that cost and break it down as a separate cost. So none of this will be considered. None of these costs are considered as taking the mick by a corporate client. Seeing the breakdown in this way will show your transparency. It is a very standard expected part of any kind of formal or informal tendering, procurement or contract initiation process. So they will want to see this, and if you include this and are completely transparent about how this works, the better you are going to have in terms of chances of getting the contract. Now I'm just going to put something here, this bit's for you only, do not give this bit to the client. I do recommend with corporate work that you add in anything from a 30 to a 60% profit margin. I would not put that down here separately. What I would do is I'd work out these costs first and then add the 30 to 60% profit margin on top of the actual cost. Because if you're only having your costs covered, guys, you're going to break even. You need to actually make money. So these are your actual costs. You add on 60% and now you're getting your costs covered and you're making a profit. So all the client's going to see is the total price. I've just put that at a profit margin for you so that you can note that in there. Now, of course, there may be some other things depending on your industry that might be included in here, PPE, personal protective equipment, if you're using stuff like that, vehicles, if you're using vehicles and things. But these are kind of your very standard everyday costs that pretty much every trainer, facilitator or consultant is going to need to account for. Now, I recommend that you attach this cost breakdown to your proposal document. This is usually in any tender process or any contract initiation process. This budget and cost breakdown sheet is a requirement of your application and of that contract starting. So if you've done this anyway, as just part of that initial outreach process, you've already done the job. And you're already going to make sure that you're going to be profitable when you actually do go out there and start delivering it. And there's no surprises for anyone, of course. All right, questions. I'm just checking the chat box. Could you use your Thinkific website, or is it best to have a separate one for the business? Okay, so a couple of different ways of doing this. I've always had maintraining.com.au as my kind of corporate side, and then I've got sarahcordner.com as my more public side. However, I did it like that for about 11 years. I've recently combined them all together. So now if you do type in maintraining.com.au, it actually just redirects you to sarahcordner.com. The reason why is because what I've done is I've now added a tab on my website called Corporate Trainer Speaker. So I've basically just kind of replaced my corporate website with a page on my personal website, if that makes sense. So if you're using a learning management system and you don't have a website, you can just simply create a custom page behind the scenes inside that learning management system and call it, Sarah Cordner corporate trainer or corporate speaker or corporate presenter. And you can just put all your corporate stuff on that particular page. You can also create a category, which is probably a better idea. Creating a category on LinkedIn, on Thinkific or Kajabi or any of those. It will give you a URL specifically for that category that you can share. That can become your more corporate page. It has its own landing page. So that can kind of keep it all nice and professional in one space there. The contact person is often the administrator of the training, not the training specialist. I'm not sure what you mean.
It was just to comment about what you were saying before about the person that you contact. They're not going to be a specialist in training. Quite often they're mainly administrators, and they just have to make sure that everybody on the work site has received X, Y, Z, tick the boxes, and they're all up to date with their training to cover themselves for insurances, etc. So yeah, that's all that was about.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I completely
got you. I was going to ask about
profit.
Costings. Yeah, not only that, but it just also came to mind when you're talking about for under 50 people, it costs this much. For under, 500, under 1,000, and the price actually reduces. Mm-hmm. How would you actually work that out? Because it sort of links in with my other question, which is how do you know if it's a 30% or 60% profit, and like how do you work out that space?
Thanks. So this really is going to depend on how you've chosen to deliver the training. I mean, obviously, if this is all online, you can be quite flexible with your pricing because the fact that the overheads are pretty much zero and fixed, right? So this is why it's kind of hard to say exactly because it's depending on the offer or the proposal that you've made in terms of the delivery. So online, it means you're going to be able to reduce the cost per head. Now, with your fixed price training, let's say if you're delivering in-person training, the first thing I would do is I would work out if there was only one person in the classroom, because let's face it, we've still got to turn up, we've still got to travel there, we've still got to deliver the training. So to us, really, it doesn't matter whether there's one person or 100 people in the room, unless it comes to like calculating the cost of printed materials. I would work this out based on one individual first. Go through all of this. For one person, it's going to cost X amount, and I have to make that much money to cover my fees. That will say to you, perhaps this comes out at like $2,000 at minimum for you to prepare this training and go and deliver it to one individual. That way you could then go, all right, in that case, I want at least $1,000 profit for doing all of this. So I'm getting paid $1,000 for a day's work. Let's say it's a one-day training. You would then simply say it's $3,000, and I don't care whether you send one person to this training or whether you send 50 people to this training. It's $3,000 for me to come for a day, because you may decide I'm happy to deliver this training for $1,000 for a day's work. Only you can decide what you're happy to obviously charge out per hour. I personally wouldn't deliver a day's worth of training for less than $5,000 for an organization. That's just a price I've set for me, right? So I would simply say, I don't care whether you have one person or 10 people, it's $5,000 for me to come for the day. However, sorry about my plumber is here. If you have got a number of different elements to your training, such as the online part and the coaching elements, I'm just going to let the plumber in. Sorry, bear with me. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to Zoom call, so I'll just let you get to it. Follow the poo stream coming out the spare toilet. Thanks. Sorry, my 2-year-old has well and truly destroyed my toilet, so it's having to be ripped out because it's got too many toys shoved up it. So yeah, if you've got lots of different elements in there, what you can then do then is go, okay, well, if it's going to cost me this much to deliver it to one person, and I'm going to get my $1,000 that I'm happy with for the day or whatever it is that you've calculated for, you may just then go, well, from one person onwards, I'm happy to simply get $100 a head, because that $100 a head is all an extra bonus. So you could say to your client, minimum running fee is $5,000 for the day. And that's for up to 10 people. Anything over 10 people is going to be $100 per head from the $5,000 mark onwards. So only you can really decide based on the time and the amount of effort that you're putting in, what's going to work best for you. The great thing is there's no fixed way of doing it. So you can be quite creative with the number of people that you're expecting to take on. With those larger organizations, I do find that it's easier for them to simply pay you one fee for the entire year for an unlimited number of people, if it's more of an online learning thing.
And if there's coaching involved as well, that's another element that's going to shake that up as well. However long the coaching is going to be for. Hey.
Yeah, so you can't ever offer anything for more than 12 months in the corporate space because their budgets go year to year. So I would be making sure that if you are going to be offering coaching, particularly to executives or leaders or anything like that, that you're in your proposal, you're saying this is a 12-month long, they get one coaching call a month per individual, maximum 45 minutes. And if they don't use them, it does not roll over. They have the opportunity to book that one call a month, and that's the end of the contract, whether they use it or not. Then you can renew again next year. That way you're not going to have people banking up calls. In 2025, you've got 5 million calls a day. It's just not going to work. So yeah, I hope that gives you some ideas and cost breakdowns there. Again, this particular template, all editable, I've popped for you inside this course on your dashboard, so you can go and grab that. And that pretty much, guys, brings us to the end of this proposal document. The last thing you would add in are just your team. It may be that you have a couple of other experts that you work with. You might put them in. If it's just you, it's just you. So, instead of saying team, you'd put qualified or experienced expert, for instance. Silly dog, sorry guys. And you might then just end it with a couple of quotes, basically. Sorry, let me get that dog in here. Sorry guys, it's because we've gone over time. I was expecting to be done by now and not let you see all of this. So yeah, it's really good to just put some quotes and testimonials in at the end. Now, if you've ever worked with any organizations before, put the organization's logos in here. If you don't have a testimonial, you can put who we've worked with. All right, so it is totally legal and okay if you have provided training to a well-known organization in the past. Let's pretend I've done some work for Commonwealth Bank, what I personally have. I don't need to have a testimonial from them. I could simply put Commonwealth Bank's logo here and just say provided leadership training to this organization. So it doesn't have to be a testimonial. You can just sort of do a little bit of a show off as to some of the people that you've worked with in the past, and that's totally fine. Final thing, terms and conditions. So this just might be things about what's not included. Things like after 12 months, if you haven't used X, Y, and Z, it's gone. There's no rollovers. We want it delivered in 3 payments, 3 milestones at this point, and this point. All payments must be made by this date. So you can obviously, up to you, determine how this works. You may say, things like for people that exceed your user license, you will be charged extra. You will be moved up to the next license budget, blah, 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 blah. So up to you to pop those bits in there. And then finally, you have kind of what would be a signing contract agreement. So package selected is package A. Maybe they've asked for a few custom things. Total payment is payment 1 is due by this date, payment 2 is due by this date, payment 3 is due by this date. Here's my name, here's my role, there's your name, there's your role, and we both sign and date that document at the bottom. Now, of course, when you're just sending this out blank in the first place, it's your first initial send out, put in as if they're choosing just the simple basic middle package. I usually go for the middle package because people always psychological. They won't pick the cheapest. They won't pick the most expensive. They normally pick the one in the middle. So I would normally quote this as if they've picked the middle package. And then I just put no additional services at present, can be customized later. And then I put the dates due as if it's going to be in 6 months' time, because that's usually a manageable date based on getting through all the processes. So I put like a 6 months from now as the starting payment, and I pre-sign it. So I actually put today's date and my signature on there. Not that this would ever be used as the contract, it just looks professional. Okay, so I've just found that little touch, the fact that you've printed it out, you've handwritten it, and you sent it out. You right, Liam? It's good. My toilet's getting smashed out behind me right now. Cool. All right, so let's just take you through here. No, that's just my text. Yes.
So the proposal, would you actually print that out and put it in the mail as well? You wouldn't just email it?
Absolutely. So once you've edited this inside your Canva and you've put it all in their colors and you've filled all this stuff in. So like I say, the only bit you're ever going to have to alter for each client is that first page, all right, where you're just talking about here's who you are, here's what you need, here's what's good for your business. You're just going to tweak mainly those details and the colors and the logos. I print it out, sign that back, and put it in the snail mail, as well as then scan it with my signature on it, or you can just do a digital signature. It's probably going to be easier. And then email it to them as well with their personalized proposal document and the cost breakdowns attached inside it as well. So in terms of just breaking down some of those costs again, there is no average rate. You are the only person that really can choose to decide what you cost per hour, what your rate is. But to give you a rough idea, corporates are going to be expecting you to charge anything from about $300 an hour to, for a normal trainer facilitator, up to $2,000 an hour. So that is very expected range. If you're charging less than $500 an hour, you're probably going to be looked at as a greenie. They're probably going to say this person probably hasn't been in this field for very long and might not take you seriously. But of course, you've got to be prepared of who you're up against as well. If you have qualifications, if you have any awards, if you've got more than 5 years experience, if you've got sort of any other clients that you've worked with that are significant clients in your industry, you do have extra boasting points. You do have an unfair advantage, and I would milk that and use that unfair advantage to charge more. Because if they can see, wow, they're qualified, they've been in this for more than 5 years, they've worked with some of our competitors or other giants in this field, they're going to expect you to be charging a decent amount of money. So that will be something worth then increasing your prices for. So just to give you a rough idea, I am qualified. I have been in my industry for 15 years. I've worked with a lot of significant organizations in the corporate space in my field. I tend to charge, depending who it is, the size of the organization, if it's a one-off training or if there's multiple courses coming from it, anywhere from between $5,000 to $8,000 a day, depending on what it is that I'm running and all of the other stuff around it, just to give you some rough ideas. If you are starting out, you're going to want to go for that 500 to maybe $2,000 mark. Just again, rough idea. Now you can charge an hourly rate to provide training. You can charge a half day rate and a full day rate, or you can charge per head, or you can charge one single fixed fee for the whole entire project. And only you can decide what that is. Now, of course, if any of you do want help putting your proposal together, putting together some packages, putting together your kind of offering, putting your costing together and how you're going to charge, or setting up some of the tech behind the scenes, I can absolutely do that with you on a one-on-one Zoom call. So just go to sarahcorn.com/booking. You can book a call with me there, and I can actually sit down, take over your screen, and we can help type up your proposal together and sort of get your first one drafted out. So you've got something as a template to start with as well. So do feel free to book in an hour if you want that help. Otherwise, we've gone on a bit longer than I expected today, but this is a really big topic and it's well worth the effort and the time. Thank you. Any questions?
Is that going to be $2,000 an hour, Sarah? Because you've got
for you guys, it's not. It's $350 to have a one-on-one call with me for us to sit and do that together. But yeah, you never know; it might be increased soon. So book in while you can. Does anyone have any questions you'd like to ask? No, just look, this stuff does seem really overwhelming. So do go into the course, get your downloads, get your templates together, and just start shooting, guys. Like I said, if you throw enough darts, one will hit the board eventually, and you just have to start throwing the darts. Really, you will get better. Your first few darts are going to be a bit shonky, a bit rough. You're going to get questions come back. No worries. You will improve as you go, and your proposals will get better as you go. I look back at some of my old ones and absolutely cringe. My best advice is, look, if you are, and most of us are, independent trainers, independent consultants, please don't try and act like you're some massive corporation. It just feels so icky, you know, like we have been established since, right? If you are just you, it's me. I am a professional consultant, I am a professional trainer, or I'm an expert in this thing. I deliver training to organizations that do this. Here are some of the ways that I deliver them. This is how long I've been in the field, the industry, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Don't try and pretend you're some big company if you're not. It just doesn't work like that. You're going to get far better if people see that you're an individual, and that relationship's going to be easier to build when they know that they're talking to Chad or they're talking to Febby, right? It's that's just the way that it goes.
Quick question. So my background is in health promotion. That's what I trained as. I've actually worked in construction and mining companies doing their health and wellness previously, which is why I said mining. And I had never done the one-on-one work case management like I did with the bushfires. It was just a calling. I thought I'll never even get the job, but I did. So that's a whole different aspect for me on what I can now train from that experience. So if I start off with, you know, training around trauma and PTSD, is it a possibility that I could offer other trainings as well, not just have, you know, like you've got leadership, you've obviously got other business sort of training as well that you could offer?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what that second page is for in your proposal document, to say, here are all the things that I teach. But, you know, you may be just going in there with sort of leading with one particular one that you think they might be more likely to pick. So that's why you might have maybe 4 or 5 different versions of your proposal, where one focuses on training A, one focuses on training B, but your front page will always say, here are all the things I can do. Please contact me to discuss which ones you'd like. But for the time being, one of our most popular ones at the moment is this. That's kind of one of the ways that you might word it. So if you know that organization is going to want that post-trauma recovery training, so this is one of my most popular ones at the moment. But all the others
at the moment, trust me.
Yes, definitely.
All right.
Love it. All right, guys, I'm going to have to wrap up at that point, because we have gone over, and I've got a toilet issue going on. Love that for the recording. Thank you so much. Good luck and have fun with this space. It is a really wild ride, but it will completely change your business once you get into this space. You know, your income will dramatically improve. Within 18 months of using this model, I had well exceeded my first $1 million and had to employ 9 people pretty much on the 18-month mark, delivering training like this, because they wanted more. They wanted it to go through me, and I had to hire trainers and facilitators to then basically deliver my training on my behalf under my company name. So this is kind of where the opportunity for scale and expansion then does actually come into play within about a year or 2 down the line. So always keep that on the back of your mind as well. This doesn't just have to be you running ragged. This could become where your training arm starts to build and develop as well, and it gets very, very exciting from there. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and yeah, please feel free to share your experiences in the Edupreneur group or leave a review on my Facebook business page. All helps. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Bye.